All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Serious Angler Podcast, episode number 190. We're getting close to 200, dude. But welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Bailey Egbert, and as always, joined by the captain, Mr. Andy Full. I love that it's just your signature wave now. I know it's like 40 episodes deep of you doing it, but it's still... Dude, we're almost on 100 episodes together.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
It is nuts. It feels like... last week we brought you on and we decided to do this thing.
Yeah, it's been pretty exciting. Let's see, like 6 months now. I mean, we've been firing them out. It might even be longer. It might be like July or June.
Yeah, I think it was. Year. Yeah, was it July or was it early August? I can't even remember. We'll have to go back after the show and check it out.
Yeah, I want to say it was June or July. It was a while ago. It's pretty sweet. I'm still appreciative for you bringing my goofy self on here as a co-host. So, I mean, one thing I do have to say, though, everyone who missed out on these hats, they're freaking sweet. So, yeah, sorry.
Oh, the leather patch, Richardson.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah.
Shout out to Threadfin Apparel, Chase Tanner, who is another a member of the kayak community. As obviously, as you can see by the title, we have Mr. Craig Dye on today. Chase Tanner did an amazing job with those hats.
Heck yeah.
I will be rocking it the entire trip down to Tennessee tomorrow.
You're going down the trip with Rudd.
Ooh, yeah, I'm leaving the house in 8 hours. So as soon as the show is over, I am editing, uploading, and going straight to bed. The cars I'm looking out in the driveway, and the car's all rigged up. Hobie's tied down, ready to go fish. And obviously, yeah, I mean, once you guys are listening to this episode's obviously up on a Friday. While you're listening, if it's the morning or afternoon, I am probably out on Chickamauga right now with Caleb and Mr. Alex Rudd. Hopefully catching some old bigs. It sounds like Caleb's on them, so
you'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be a fun day nonetheless.
As for me,
I've never actually met Alex Rudd. Like, I've talked to Alex a bunch in the past couple of months, and I've never actually met him.
Dude, you're gonna have a ball.
Yeah. I'm excited to see Caleb again. We caught him up pretty good on Nickajack back in November with Zach, and that was a blast. But it's gonna be fun, dude. We're gonna film a whole bunch of content. I know some people liked some of the kayak review videos I've done in the past, so I'll be walking through the new 2021 PA 12 360, doing some bunch of different videos. Hopefully, getting on some fish. So I can
travel vlog.
Some travel vlogs. We're gonna do that. From coming from New York to Tennessee, and then obviously when I meet up with Destin, we go down to Fork. It's gonna be a blast. But we're hopefully gonna put out some more videos for you guys. Try to fill in that gap Tuesday, Thursdays. Give you guys some more fishing content beyond just listening to Andy and I ramble as we're doing right now.
And as always, as we're rambling, make sure you shoot us a message on what you would like to see, so we can put it in our to-do list, because we don't just want to do these for us. We want to do them for everyone listening. So Let us know what you want to hear, and we will do our best to put that together for you.
We've had some pretty good messages lately of people asking for topics to be talked about, and it's actually given us some really good ideas of things we can put together. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a blast. And,
the fun one I think is going to be the single swim bait. The 3/8 Kitech versus the 4-inch Spark Shad.
Yeah, that'll be that's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
we'll have to do that at a moment where we can get some underwater footage just to see kind of how they pulse different, because they are two different swim baits completely.
Heck yeah!
But beyond that, obviously we're going to ramble. We could ramble forever, but I think of most importance tonight, and we're going to get
Craig on
right here, Mr. Craig Dye. What's going on, sir?
What's up, gentlemen? What's going on?
No, not a whole lot. Congrats on your top 20 on that BFL, on top of all your crazy kayak stuff you're doing. So, and family travels, it sounds like.
Yeah, man, it's been busy. Like I mentioned, I fished the BFL on Lanier, and I'll tell you real quick, but that was my first time fishing as a co-angler. I mean, I've watched every YouTube video, read every article, so I felt like, hey, I was ready, man. I knew how much money to give the boater. I knew, when to grab the net. I mean, I had it down, let me tell you. But when you get there, it's a different deal. It's a lot more relaxed. It's so much fun, man. But what was cool is Friday night before the tournament, that's when they pair everybody up, and then you call the boater, or they get a text or whatnot. Well, for some reason, I don't know if it's because I have Verizon, but I had issues. I wasn't getting the text or the call. And I said, man, maybe I didn't get in. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But a few minutes later, the guy called me. Awesome guy, man. A guy named Josh, and very cool. And he said, hey, we're going to do something different. And I'm thinking Lake Lanier, wintertime, I'm going to be fishing deep. I'm going to be fishing, swim baits in 40 foot of water. I'm going to be drop shotting, throwing spoons. Y'all know the deal. I'm going to be, throwing, jerk baits. The guy's like, hey, man, I'm on a largemouth bite, 2 foot to 6 foot of water. We're going to hit a bunch of spots all day. We're throwing crankbaits all day. And for me, I love throwing crankbaits. It's my favorite thing to do in the world. I'm like shallow cranking with a guy who, is from Gainesville, knows that, upper river stuff real well. And man, that's what we did pretty much all day. And I love throwing crankbaits. So I just threw a different crankbait behind him. And man, just, I caught 5 fish. I boated 5 fish all day. And that's all I need. I got, $240. And, I learned a lot, man. The guy was good. He was really good. So,
heck yeah, dude. I didn't realize that was your first BFL, man. That's sick.
That was, yeah. I mean, I fished boat tournaments back in high school, a little bit in college with my uncle, just kind of stuff in Louisiana. But this is my first BFL, like, bass tournament as a co-angler or, whatever. And man, it was awesome, man. I mean, I've been to a lot of shows, the Bassmaster Classic. I've worked shows. I've been around all these guys a lot, but man, the competition is just, I don't care what, I'm so competitive. I'm just happy to be there catching fish, and just, trying to do well and get a limit and get a check. And, I got fortunate, real fortunate.
Heck yeah.
Really quick, because I want to dive into that for a second. Yeah. If you don't mind talking about it.
That's why I'm here. Let's go.
You were throwing a different crankbait than your boater, different in like shape, different in build, different in color. How dive into that a little bit, because I'm very curious.
So all right, he was fishing upriver and fishing shallow. He had very specific spots and banks that looks like nothing on these banks. I'm talking about 100 yards between docks, and it just looks like kind of a flat, not a steep bank. Just kind of comes out. The boat's sitting in about 10 foot of water, and he had certain rock piles, certain brush piles, certain little drops that we would probably never catch, man. But this guy grew up in Gainesville, Georgia. He knows the water so well. But so we were throwing, really, I think any crankbait probably would have worked. But he was throwing I think it's a Series 3, and it was just a Strike King Series 3 crankbait. It goes down, I think it goes down, 6-10 feet, something like that. I'm not real super familiar with that model. And he was throwing a kind of a green, kind of almost like a green grayish color, right? And he was catching them early in the morning. He caught them good, man. He was on them. And I picked up one of my favorite crankbaits, was a Rapala DT6. And I was just throwing just a shad color, just straight, nothing crazy, no rattles, just a straight DT6. And I was picking up fish behind him. And it was, and he kind of looked at me because, that's his deal, right? So he thought he was going to kind of give me a lesson. And I started picking up behind him. He kind of looked at me like, man, what's going on back there a little bit? Kind of like, what are you throwing? Because I don't think he was expecting that, I wouldn't think he was expecting me to be able to pick him off behind him too. But, but man, it was really cool. And look, I've heard a lot of stories about co-anglers, good experiences, bad experiences. But I mean, to me, it was the best experience. For my first one, it was the best one. He was the nicest guy. He let me fish everything. Like, he didn't block me from anything, any docks, any brush piles. He would fish it, and let me come in right behind him, and I also threw a shaky head a little bit and caught a couple fish doing that, behind him. But I mean, it was the best, man. But yeah, that was, he was throwing a certain color and I was throwing a certain color, and it seemed to work.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I like how you finessed it, because like when I think of a guy's cranking in front of me, I'm thinking like kind of like how you did, a shaky head. But you finessed it while still keeping that power aspect of he's throwing a Series 3, which has rattles in it. And
it's bigger.
Positive Series 3 plastic. And you went to a DT, which is silent, obviously, in balsa. So like,
yeah, that's smart. Also has a much tighter wobble as well.
Right.
So, and the thing is, he covered water quick. So working a worm, you guys know, you don't want to work worm. You don't want to drag it. I mean, it's just, you're going to get hung up. It's just, it's no fun, man. So I wanted to be able to fish, and he let me cast, a lot of guys talk about not casting in front of, half of the boat or whatnot.
Right.
But he was casting way up front, and he said, look, man, you can cast up here as long as you don't, obviously cast, too far in front of me. So he was really cool about it. So I'm not casting straight out to the bank, and then by the time I reel it in, it's behind the boat. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he really let me cast naturally how you would if I was fishing, by myself.
Yeah. Most guys that I've found as a co-angler, I mean, pretty much every single one has been like, as long as you're not casting in the direction I'm casting, like if you're doing something away from me that doesn't affect me, there's not that boundary line, right?
Yeah,
like that, where it's like as long as you're not casting in his direction, trying to compete for the same fish he is, then they're pretty cool with it. So
he moved a lot, which so I mean I'm telling you, man, he was dialed. He should have been top 5, but he missed 2 big fish that got off about halfway back to the boat, because they were honestly. I talked to a lot of guys at the weigh-in. There were a lot of fish swiping the bait that day. A lot of people missed fish, or just, man, I got the bites, but I just couldn't get a hook in them. And he probably should have been top 5. I think he got 11 out of everybody. So that was really, he got a good check too. But he could have done a little better. But how it goes with crankbait fishing. Sometimes you just can't get them.
They just come off.
Yeah, I mean, nothing. You can have the right hooks, the right line, the right everything, and rod, and sometimes you're just not going to win.
Yep.
I was listening to a Bass U episode, and they were diving into that Rapala. It's like the bladed treble. You guys know what I'm talking about? Or has the
VMC, the VMC bladed
VMC?
treble.
Sorry, I don't know why I said Rapala.
It's the same company. Treble. I think Rapala is like the mother company or whatever that umbrella is.
You're talking about the hooks that have the little blade on them.
The tiny
it's like
little
a hybrid,
treble. I was listening to them talk about how they've had instances like that where the fish are just swiping at it. They're getting like maybe 1 or 2 of their back treble, and they slap that bladed treble on there, and they get it really good. So that's like kind of something I'm going to play around with this year too, because it's definitely been instances where it's like they're barely getting it, and I'll switch colors too, and that it won't work at all. It'll still be just barely getting it. Maybe that bladed treble will. And I'm not a huge fan of VMC whatsoever, but I think something like that is could be a difference maker.
I think another company that makes those is Decoy, and they make a really nasty cranking hook. Yeah.
Really? Well, I got a funny story about those hooks, though. When I was down in Florida fishing the KBF Invitational down there, I was fishing Lake Toho, and I found, man, it's like, let's see, it's a little hump that came up, right? It came up to about 3 feet full of grass, right? Full of grass. And as it goes down to 10 feet, the grass, it was like a wall, right at 8 or 9 feet. It would just be a perfect wall where the grass stopped, right? Bunch of bait, a bunch of fish suspended in there. You could just see them loaded up. I tried on practice. I knew they were there. I tried to catch those fish, right? I tried a rattle trap, jerk bait, swim bait, spinner bait, a jig, you name it, crankbait. I even tried, cranking the edge of the grass. Couldn't get them to bite. I got back to the hotel. I'm rigging up at the hotel back at our Airbnb house. Has a pool there. And I grab those hooks that you're talking about that have that little blade on there, and I put them on my rattle trap, and I go out to the pool. And I'm like, we're just, a bunch of guys hanging out, just, rigging stuff, and just, we got a pool, so we're going to throw our baits in the pool just for the fun of it, right? So I throw the rattle trap, I reel it in, and I drop it. And as it drops, that blade spins. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. That's a little added flash, that you normally don't have, right? I go back out the next day. I had one more practice day, and I finally figured out the only way I could catch those fish on that drop right there was to throw that rattle trap with that little blade. That's the only way I could get them to bite. I caught one about 5.5. I didn't have my camera on, but I don't, who knows if it made the difference, but in my mind, those fish, the thing is, it's right out from the ramp where I was at on Toho, and it probably gets hammered, probably every day, especially right now. I imagine those fish have seen everything. And I think that might have made the difference, man. I don't know, but that was kind of, you brought that up, so I had to tell that story.
Are you talking about a blade on the rattle trap or the bladed treble?
I'm talking about a blade that's on the treble hook.
Oh, it's not a treble hook? Okay. Because I know there's some LV500s where you can actually buy them with blades on the front, on that nose of an LV500. I own a couple of those. Yeah, those are super juicy. So if anyone hasn't seen those, I'm putting y'all on now. That's a sweet little bait. It kind of takes away from the knock of the rattle trap, but it's obviously that different presentation, a little bit more flash. combined with that little bit of thump from that rattle trap. It's pretty nice. It has a place, definitely.
Yeah, and there's also a little crankbait company, Nishine Works. They make the crankbaits, the Chippewa, that comes with a bladed treble already.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good in the water. I mean, it's definitely good for catching us to pay for the thing, But it looks really cool. And like I said, who knows if that's what it was that day. In the tournament, those fish were being hammered by boaters, so I couldn't even fish it during the KBF tournament. But I mean, it was cool though. It was kind of a cool little change to make. You never know.
Heck yeah,
for
dude.
Sure.
Yeah. Before we get too deep, and I say that, and we're 15 minutes in, and obviously you're new to the show. We've never had you on before, and I failed to ask you one of my most important questions for anybody that's new. And I just want to learn, dude, how you even got into fishing in the first place. Who got that passion installed in you? The first bass you caught. I love to hear that story.
Well, it was my dad, man. My dad, since I was little, he would bring me outside. He would blindfold me and hand me a bait caster and say, learn how to use this thing. Because he wanted me to do it, by feel instead of watching the bait fly in the air and, then pushing your thumb down on a spool. He wanted me to figure it out by feel. Like, seriously, I remember he would put like 3 or 4 washers on like a rod, and just blindfold me out in the driveway, learn how to use this thing. And, I fished with him early on. And then when I got into high school, he wasn't a tournament guy. He just, would just bring us out there to catch bluegill and bass or whatever.
Right.
The one fish though, if you want to know about one fish catch, I think I was 12 and we have some property in Alabama, a couple farm ponds there. And my dad, he has a big tackle box of all this nice stuff, right? He gave me a big old silver router trap. And I think he did that just because it could cast easy. I'm not going to backlash his reel. You know what I mean? And
right.
He's more of a worm guy, so he probably just wanted to give that to me. So I go out and I catch about a 4.5 pounder. And that one fish, man, I remember the exact bank and the exact spot. There was a tree overhanging, from the right side, and I cast it right to the left of it. And I remember reeling it in. I actually have video. My grandpa took video, and I actually posted it about a month ago of me holding the fish and talking about it. When I was 12 years old, right next to the pond. But that's what that fish, man, is what got me hooked. That was it. And then when I got into high school and college, I fished some tournaments with my uncle, and then I took a break for a couple years, and then when I got back to Atlanta. I grew up in Louisiana. When I came to Atlanta, that's when I discovered kayak fishing on the Chattahoochee River right here in downtown Atlanta. And then I moved to Tennessee. I started here, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, started KBFTN. That's where I met Chad Hoover. That's when all the KBF stuff started. That's where Hook One started. The whole thing just kept building and, just meeting people, relationships. And that's just kind of how it went, man. And here we are. I don't know how many years later, 10 years later or something. I don't know.
It's funny how time flies.
Man, it's crazy. Like, I remember when Chad opened the little Hook One where it was like as big as this room, then he opened the other location, and then somebody bought it, and it was 2 locations. And unfortunately, Hook One's gone now. But other opportunities, come as other things go away,
Yeah,
for sure.
It's crazy to look back, see how far kayak fishing's gone. Now you can win 30 to 50K in derbs, and I don't know how much it paid out for Watts Bar, but it looked like it was a nice chunk of change. I didn't actually look at that picture of what Ryan Lambert's check was.
I think it was 5 or 6. But
for 90 people, yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Did you see the payout for the bass event in June for the classic?
$50,000 if everyone goes. Yeah.
$50,000, man. That's real money, man. Come on, that's real money, dude. That's not like
that makes me want to buy a kayak. I'll tell you what,
man. Well, one of my best tournaments was the KBF National Championship a couple years ago on Kentucky Lake. And I think I came home with about $8 or $9 grand. Like, I got top 10. There was 700 something people there. It was crazy. But I used that money to get like a play set for the kids, and we poured like a patio in the back where we always hang out with the family and everything. So the good thing is when I go fishing, I remind my wife, I'm like, you remember what you remember what paid for all this stuff? You know what I mean? It's like a good reminder. Yeah. So,
it's like blackmail almost.
Yeah. But she's super, like, really super supportive. I mean, every year in January, and I can bring her in here. She won't come on camera though, but like I say, look, are you in? Like, I look at her and I say, are you in 100%? Because if she, because we got 2 kids, and if she doesn't want me to do this or feels like it's too much, I need to know in January before we make all these plans, before we do all this stuff, But she always says, man, she's like, I'm in. I support it. I do. And like, it's either fishing or family. That's really her work. But I mean, that's it. That's it. That's what I do, man. And I'm trying to be 100% in on everything, and sometimes I do too much, but she lets me know when I'm doing too much. She's not scared.
If you don't come back with the win, don't come home.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, yeah. Right.
It's fair.
So,
are you competing in the national championship for bass?
That one, I qualified. I qualified at Logan Martin. I had a top 20 finish, so I qualified at the first event they had last year. I really want to, man. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. That's Kim, my wife's a teacher, so she gets off at the end of May. So it's kind of I don't know. Believe me, I'm looking at the calendar trying to make it happen because it's the first real championship for bass. I mean, I know they had the one last year, but that was just the opening event. But I really want to, man. I really want to be there. I was at the KBF events. I was at the FLW Nickajack, the kayak one they did there. I don't know if y'all remember that one. I want to be at the first time they do these things. I just want to be there because this is still the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
And just, I've seen it from the bottom. I've seen it from the very beginning when Chad started to where it is now. And I want to keep riding it, man. I mean, it's so cool. It really is.
Yeah, well, let me know if you need a place. I'm good buddies with Zach Hall, who just got third at the Hobie on Seminole, and we have a house or an Airbnb down there with Mike Elsey.
Mike, yeah.
Yeah, we got some room if you need anywhere to stay. So you let me know,
man.
I hope you can go down there so we can actually like meet in person. That'd be pretty sweet.
Man, I would love to. And Mike Elsey, me and him fished against each other in the I think it was a KBF tournament on Pickwick, where he did real well. I think he got top 5 or 3rd or something like that. I was fishing up by the dam cranking rock for smallmouth, and he was fishing behind the island. And, man, he lost some big ones that day. I'll never forget seeing him at the ramp, man. He was like, I should have won this thing. That's the one Christine won. The one Christine won on Pickwick. Yeah,
I think my frog, I think.
No, she was throwing a spinnerbait. You can go watch the video. She was throwing spinnerbaits and worms and stuff like that. But
what am I thinking about then? I could have sworn she
won a
frog, but maybe it's just me.
Well, maybe she.
I'm probably just crazy. I'm on social media too much, so I'm probably it's probably fogging my memory.
Hey, there's so many tournaments and trails now; it's hard to keep up.
Right? I do my best. I promise.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude. So, getting back into kayak fishing, obviously you said you fished tournaments in high school and college, but getting back into kayak fishing, did it kind of change how you fished or you used to fish? Like, did your strengths and weaknesses change as an angler getting into the whole kayak realm?
Well, when I fish, I grew up in Louisiana, so 10 foot or less, I'm ready. You know what I mean? and when I came to Georgia, I started out just fishing a lot of. I mean, I fished little rivers when I was younger, but when I came here, I started fishing the Chattahoochee, started spanning out, fishing Lanier more, fishing Allatoona sometimes, fishing Chickamauga, But really, that was at the very beginning, and then I moved to Tennessee, and that's when I got into smallmouth country, and that's when my eyes got real big. Like, man, this is awesome. But basically, what I'm saying is, I had to learn how to fish deep. I had to be comfortable sitting in open water, fishing 30 or 40 feet, fishing humps, fishing drop-offs, fishing isolated brush piles in the middle of nothing. And so my first couple of years in Tennessee, I was doing outside sales, so I did have some free time to fish a little more than I do now. So I spent a lot of time on the water. The first 2 or 3 years I was in Tennessee, I've never fished so much in my life. I didn't have kids. My wife was working, so I had, a lot of time. And that's when I really developed the skills of being able to pattern fish, chasing windy banks, how to get the right angle on throwing crankbaits, throwing chatterbaits, the right depths, using half ounce, using 3/8 ounce, like really learning. I learned more in those 2 or 3 years with having all that time on the water than I probably have in the last, I don't know, 20,
Right.
Dang.
I mean that's what it was, man. And that's when I started winning, tournaments for KBFTN. I won a KBF trail event, got a second in the KBF trail event. Like it just started to really, and then it didn't matter where you went. You just do the same thing at a different lake, and you just have a feeling like, okay, there's wind blowing in this grass. I'm gonna throw a swim bait, throw a chatterbait, and it just it wasn't easy, but you could catch them. You could just go catch them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and now,
you develop like an inner confidence. So you're like, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be able to catch 5 or whatever the limit is, 3 or.
Yeah,
so
and then
awesome.
And then when the KBF started getting bigger, the trails, so you started fishing all these different lakes. I would go fish Gunnersville one weekend, then be on Percy Priest Lake another, then Kentucky Lake another. And then you just learn, man. You learn so much by getting out there and doing it. Even if you're failing, you're still out there learning and talking to guys and seeing how they did it. But yeah, that's kind of how it's been progressing, over the years.
Do you like Percy Priest by chance?
I love it. I
Really?
love it. Yeah, I used to live like 10 minutes away from it. But man, the quality of largemouth is getting better and better every year. The smallmouth, I mean, have you ever had Adam Reiser on here?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
That's
I
a guy.
the shows with him.
Adam Reiser, man, he's I started fishing with him at KBFTN. The guy spends a lot of time on the water, especially Percy Priest. So I mean, I highly recommend you calling him and talk to him and Russ as well. Russ Snyder, Russ Snyder's.
Right.
So they're all over there in Nashville.
Yeah.
But Percy Priest is awesome, man. Yeah, good largemouth, good smallmouth, and you can catch some decent spotted bass too.
Yeah. I asked because it was one of the first. I went down to the Classic last year to work it, and on the way down, I decided to stop along a roadside because I saw you could fish from the bank there. And my fishing from the bank on Percy Priest was very short lived because within 2 casts, I lost 2 Vision 110s. I think it was submerged timber.
Yeah.
First cast, it was like my second or third twitch, and I thought I got bit because it's been winter. It was my first time fishing. Set the hook into it, and I'm like, there goes the jerk bait. There goes $25.
That hurts, man.
Yeah, so I moved around a little bit, threw out another 110, cast it out, same thing. I was like, okay, while I'm ahead, I'm gonna stop, and I just got back in the truck and kept driving.
Oh man,
like live another day.
That's funny.
What's cool about that lake is that you can go fish deep. They have that bank grass, river grass. I don't know what you guys call it over there, but there's a lot of different things you can fish. You can go back way up in the Stones River. Great smallmouth fishing way up in the Stones River. I mean, it's a really. I learned a lot fishing on that lake and also Old Hickory Lake. Just north of there.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. I might have to check it out on either on my way back or my way down. Probably my way back. I'll probably have to stop.
Hey, call Adam or Russ. Let them take you out because those guys have it dialed over there. Telling you, it'll be worth it.
I'll have to reach out. Yeah, for sure. That'll be sick. Well, dude, so I obviously follow your social media, and I have for a long time. You post a lot of these videos of fishing current, and obviously one thing that's on your new canoe is a motor. So those are 2 things I want to talk about here for a little bit. Now, fishing current from a kayak, I feel like can be kind of tricky because there's a lot going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So I guess, basically just to kind of start out, how do you approach current in the kayak? I mean, kind of from a simple standpoint of, are you trying to go against the current? Like if it's a river flow, are you trying to go against it primarily so that you can float back? Or are you kind of doing like with buddies and, where you launch, float down, and obviously have somebody to drive back?
Right. Man, something about, I feel super comfortable fishing around current. It's just something, I don't know what it is. I love fishing rivers. I love fishing, seams. There's a lot of big fish there, man. A lot of guys don't want to mess with it because they lose a lot of baits. It's a pain, especially if you're pedaling. Here's the problem. If you're pedaling, it doesn't matter what kayak, if you're paddling, you're constantly having to adjust your kayak to stay in place. And that's why the number one, number 2 reason I wanted the XI3, Motor Guide XI3 is so I can get to those spots, hit anchor lock, and the kayak just stays in place. So I'm really trying to stay in place. To answer your question, I'm trying to stay in place to be able to get my bait down. Because when you're fishing, I throw a lot of crankbaits around rock. Like, I fish Pickwick Dam a lot. I've been fishing, Chickamauga Dam a lot for the big smallmouth. And the key is if your bait goes down too far, you're going to get hung up and you're going to lose it, and it's going to be over. Like it's like that. It's just like if it gets wedged, it's over. It's to find that magic sweet spot where you get your bait down. A swim bait, a lot of guys throw swim baits, just like single hook swim baits, only like a heavy jig head, like 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce, half ounce, whatever. Is just to tick the top of those rocks. That's the key. That's how you do it. That's how you do it behind people. That's how you do it when other people are struggling. Is to get that magic depth where so having that XI3, I can sit still. I mean, it's it's a lot of current. If you go look at those videos, it's a lot of current. So it's not perfect. It's not keeping you still, but you're kind of going back and forth, but you're not going like this a lot. You're kind of staying in place, and you can really feel the bottom and kind of feel, where the fish are at. So that's kind of the thing for me is I just have a knack for it. I can do it all day. The Chickamauga event on the Bass Nation Chickamauga event, the kayak tournament, I tore the weekend before. I was catching 3 and 4 pounders, no problem, cranking. I mean, it was an awesome day. And I go there, tournament day, the current has changed, something's changed. I'm catching walleye, I'm catching white bass, I'm catching striper, I'm catching everything but smallmouth. All of them left. But I stayed there all day, man, and just kept doing it because I caught fish there a few days ago. Not a lot has changed, but I'm convinced myself that they're still there. They're going to bite, sooner or later. And I didn't do well in that tournament, but hey, what are you going to do? I went down. I went down trying. So
that motor is a huge advantage in that situation.
And yes, in that situation, I don't know of any other setup. I mean, I just don't. I just don't know of any other setup that can keep you like that. Because if you're in a Hobie, you're adjusting with your hand and you're not reeling. You have to adjust. You have to adjust. If you're in any other kayak, if you're, you can anchor, but it's it's dangerous to anchor in that stuff, man. I mean,
you never want to anchor in current or waves.
Some guys do like out where it's not as, not flowing as strong as probably the videos you saw, but you cannot anchor in what I was fishing in that stuff. Fishing
not safe
on Chickamauga. No, not at all. And that's why, the one good thing for me is a lot of guys don't like to go up there because it is a little sketchy. But if you know what you're doing and you know where to be and where not to be, I feel pretty safe up there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like from a standpoint of a Hobie versus that GPS, the XI3 is killer. Not only just river fishing, but like say you're offshore, you got rock piles and you got a hard wind, you're constantly pedaling at that point. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Like that's a huge advantage. Unless you're going to slap a motor on a Hobie, that is the way to go.
It's funny. I was fishing a shell bed on Chickamauga, and I was using the Torpedo. And Torpedo makes an incredible product. But I just want to be able to stand more, right? I want to be able to stand and fish more. And I was trying to fish a shell bed. The wind was blowing. The current is strong on Chickamauga, and I could not get my position. I know where I needed to be to fish this correctly. And actually, on my way home from Chickamauga that day is when I called Everett, started texting Everett, Mike Schmitz, and Derek Brundle, asking about the XI3. And then pretty much that week is when I made the decision to switch. I just couldn't stand that. I couldn't hit the right. You guys know, if you don't hit that right angle, you're not going to catch anything. You're just not going to do it. You got to be able to hit that angle every time and present the bait right. And I couldn't do it sitting down, trying to control a motor with the Torpedo. Like I said, the Torpedo is an incredible product. It's great for a lot of things. It's really fast. But for what I was trying to do, it wasn't working. So that's why I picked the XI3.
Yeah. And that was going to be another question I had for you was, when you're on these river systems and, you put on, what is it called with motor guy? Anchor lock?
Yeah, it's called anchor lock. Yeah.
Anchor lock?
Yeah.
So say you have, because I watched a video of yours where it was a submerged, it wasn't submerged, but it was a lay down essentially, creating a current break, and you were anchor locked near it. When you go to anchor lock, are you waiting till you're below that so that you're casting up, trying to give a natural presentation to obviously present your bait past that current break? Do you like where along that? If you're focused on a piece of structure, where are you anchor locking on that so that you can present your bait correctly?
Well, it depends. This time of year, I want to be, my boat most likely is going to be in the current, and I want to be throwing in the slack water. Like the Etowah River just north of me is a great spotted bass fishery. Right now, the fish just don't want to be in that current right now. So I'm fishing, if there's, let's just say there's a rock that sticks out 3 or 4 feet or a log, and it causes that nice eddy behind it, I'm fishing that slack water. But what's cool about the X-Lite 3 is that I can put the boat anywhere in the river and hit that anchor lock, and I can present the bait however I want. If it was summertime or, late spring, I'm probably gonna be fishing more of the moving water, and I'm just gonna cast, I like say it's just a log in the middle, right in the middle of the river. I'm gonna try to cast way past it, get that crankbait down or spinnerbait, and have it come with the current, hitting off, the cover there, and then hopefully get that reaction bite, but
so it's natural.
I always throw up current, obviously, and try to work my bait naturally down, past whatever cover or whatever's there.
Right. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to kind of fishing current in general is you'll see guys that are fishing the wrong way. Like, you always want to cast, what is it? You cast, trying to picture it in my mind right now. So the current's coming at you. You want to cast so that you're based with the current, not against the current.
Yeah, that's how I approach wind as well. Like when you're fishing a windy bank, if it's blowing one direction, I try to throw into the wind and work my bait, with the current, because I think that's how those fish set up. Especially fishing riprap. Like when that current's coming, around the riprap, around the corner, being set up on that side, casting, up current, upwind, always seems to work better. I mean, you can catch fish doing it the other way, but I think it's those fish position, to feed. And to bring your lure through there, I think it's just your odds go way up.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I think that motor adds an emphasis to the whole, and it firsthand way more than Andy or I do, is the whole argument versus motor versus non-motor that goes on. And I think the simple safety factor that adds to, especially current fishing and current, I think is huge. I think that should be probably one of the biggest proponents of it is if you have that GPS, that anchor lock, that makes you're a lot safer in that than you are in any other boat, kind of like how we just discussed.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I would say yes. I mean, I will say that, having a bow mounted trolling motor, like fishing a really shallow river, not the best idea. I would recommend, say, a Torpedo, or something, on the stern, but yeah, I mean, especially when you're fishing these big dams with big current, when they're generating, I mean, that's serious current, man. I mean, you have
10,
to be
15,000 CFS.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a lot, and you'll see, I put a few videos up the last 3 or 4 months over there fishing. And I mean, yeah, I agree. I think it definitely can keep you safer. It kind of keeps you in position. You don't turn sideways and start going down the river, but something else to think about is when you catch a fish, or like when you're reeling in a fish, like if you're any other boat, for the most part, your hands are on the reels. You can't really control the boat that much. So a lot of times you'll just start floating downstream, and hopefully everything's okay. But with the anchor lock, I can stand up and fight a fish in the current. I mean, standing up is probably not the best idea in that current, but I can hit anchor lock and I stay there. Like even when I'm measuring my fish on the board for a tournament, I'm staying right there. I don't float down, a quarter mile down the river. I'm still close where I can get back to my spot and get to fishing again. So that helps.
Because otherwise, and I think what a lot of guys do is they basically, if they don't have that motor, they don't have that anchor lock, they try to beach their boat and then do the picture so that they're not floating down the river for 2-3 minutes, how long it takes.
Yeah. And that could be really dangerous in current too. Like if you try to beach between 2 rocks, now you're really in some trouble.
Yeah, and it happens fast. I've only flipped my kayak one time in 10 years I've been doing it, and it happened when I was reeling in a striper. And, I was fishing the Edward River. I was standing up, casting a big spinnerbait, hooked a striper. There's a big log jam right in the middle of the river. The striper went behind the log jam, and I got hung up on the log jam. The striper broke off, so I was mad about that. and then I just turned just a little bit to the left, like just I'm talking about an inch.
And the current just sucked the nose down, probably.
I was up. It flipped me just like that. I was upside down. I had rods, tackle everywhere. I had a buddy with me that saved a couple rods, but I mean, but anyway, that was the only time, and it happened so fast, man. Everything was fine, but except I lost about $600 worth of tackle and rods and reels. But I'm sure I made somebody's day the next day somewhere.
Yeah, if they found it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, knock on wood, I haven't had that happen to me yet. I'm actually going on my first river float in the kayak on Saturday with Mr. Alex Rudd. So that's gonna be a blast. I've never done it. Like I've obviously fished like small creeks and such, but like that is kind of nothing compared to obviously what people see what you do with that kind of current and obviously that body of water. So I'm excited because I've never done it before. We don't get to fish current much up here, and obviously we're not taking the kayaks out in 2-3 mile an hour current on St. Lawrence River.
It's fun, man, because the fishing is predictable and you know where they're going to be. I mean, so it's just a matter of just keep going at it, and you'll find you'll catch them, man. I mean, that's cool about rivers, that they're they're not that hard to find, and they're going to be in predictable spots. So you usually get a lot of bites, and even if they're small, you always have fun out there. I love fishing rivers, man.
Heck yeah.
I get so excited anytime I can fish current because, like you said, it's so easy. You don't have to put much thought into it. You know where they're going to be. You know how to read current.
They have two options: to eat or not eat when something comes by them, and usually they eat because their metabolism is so much higher in current situations that they're almost forced.
Yeah. And the cool thing is you don't have bass boats. You don't have a lot of guys there. I mean, you might have some guys floating down drinking beer or something, but a lot of times you have to fish to yourself, which is nice too.
So. Not many people are doing that at all, which is a really cool part about it. So something I'm curious about, kind of going back to you as an angler, kind of touching on potentially your weaknesses as an angler, and kind of in the same line of that, are you somebody where you're going to throw your confidence bait and only your confidence and try not to I'll ask this question after we get this part. I'm not going to throw 3 parts on you. My mind's just going haywire right now. But I think the first thing is, what do you think is your biggest weakness as an angler?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I do love fishing all styles. I love flipping and punching. I love throwing frogs. I love throwing crankbaits. Let me think here. I think it's more of a mind thing for me. I think as you fish more places and you get more experience, that you can usually, let's just say I had 3 days of pre-fish, right? And I went to 3 different parts of the lake. And let's say I catch a 5-pounder on this part, right? But I go over here and I get 3 bites, but they're all 2-pounders. And I go over there and I catch a couple more. Sometimes I just try to do too much. That's something I get in trouble with. I'm like, well, I'll go fish the 5-pounder spot for a couple hours, and I got no problem packing up, man. I've done it so many times. If it's not happening, I will pack up and leave, right? So last year I tried to do more of, I'm going to make this area work. I'm going to stick it out, But last year I struggled in a couple tournaments because of that, right? So now I'm thinking I got to move around more. So I think it's more. I don't think technique wise, I feel confident doing most things. I mean, I would say skipping a jig, really good, skipping a jig on her docks. I'm okay at, stuff like that.
Right.
But most techniques, I feel like I'm pretty confident in. But I think it's more of the mind game for me. It's more of when to leave, when to stay. And with fishing a little bit less than I used to with kids and my job now, that becomes a little harder. When you fish a lot, when you're fishing 3 days a week, 4 days a week, that seems easy on the water. Those decisions just come naturally. Okay, I'm going to go do this now. You see the wind blowing on that rock bank? That's where I'm going. I don't care if I caught 5-pounders here. I'm going over there because that's where the fish are right now. That's where they're going to be biting. And now, I'm pre-fishing less than I ever have. So it's the confidence and the right decision on the water is probably what I'm struggling with the last couple of years. I mean, I'm getting checks. I'm doing okay, but I'm not winning. You know what I mean? I'm not at the top. I'm just kind of hanging in there. Top 20s, like KBF Invitational's top 20. But I think it has to do with that decision making. I really do. Time on the water, really.
Yeah, which is funny you say that because Andy and I literally just had an episode that dropped, and one of the biggest things we compared approaching practice in a kayak versus approaching practice in a boat, and I said the biggest difficulty, the biggest there's an added emphasis on the decisions you make in a kayak because of your decreased speed of mobility. So therefore, time is a greater emphasis because if you waste any time in a kayak, it's at a greater level. You know what I mean? Like talking about like how you mentioned how you've packed up and left before. Mentally, like obviously it'll work for me, but mentally, I cannot do that. That'll destroy me mentally because if I leave, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to waste like 30, 45 minutes and I could have been fishing that time. So it's one of those things where it's like, for me, from the kayak standpoint, you are living and dying by your decisions. You have a plan A, potentially a plan B, and you don't have time for plan C. Whereas a boat, you can have C, D, E, F for the most part. Granted, there's obviously, there's cases that are exceptions, but like for the most part, would you agree with that?
100%. It was very clear to me when I fished that BFL with that gentleman on Lake Lanier. There's no way we could have hit those spots on the kayak. We maybe could have hit 2 or 3, jumping around. But the way that guy was fishing and what he was doing, he had specific spots that were, like a 3 or 4 minute boat ride that way, then 3 or 4 minute boat ride this way. You know what I mean? Plus he'd go up to a spot, there'd be a boat on it. Okay, no problem. I'll just go over here 3 miles this way. It wasn't a big deal. And that's the difference, man, is you can really dial in and
cover ground.
You can really get locked on a pattern in a boat. And a kayak is more, about the area you're in and making the most of it. And if it's not working, you got to either figure it out, you got to throw a Ned rig, I don't know what you got to do, or you got to pack it up and go somewhere else,
Yeah, sure. That was the thing we mentioned. Is like 3 miles for a boat is maybe 4 or 5 minutes tops. 3 miles in a kayak, that's 45 minutes.
Yeah,
depending on what you got, and it's a greater emphasis. But I was very curious on your take. But when you're out on the water, so say like on a certain fishery, you have your confidence baits in your hand, you think, and it's not going well for you. Are you somebody that's going to pick up and try to go find different fish using those confidence baits, or are you going to try to just switch completely, know that there's fish there, and just try to fish something completely different to you? If that makes sense.
Man, because before, when I had a lot of time on the water, like I mentioned, going and just running new water was just so much easier for me. Right. But now I'm fishing less events now these days, but they're usually bigger events. So I'm really trying to get, if you go look at the stats, half the guys aren't going to get a limit. Like if you just go look, most of the time, half the guys out of every tournament I fish, a lot of guys don't get a limit. So if you get 5 on the first day, if you're in that 75, we do inches, 75 to 82 inch, you're okay, man. You're okay. So it's hard to answer your question, man. It just kind of depends on what's going on in the scenario and how many people are around me. Did I miss a couple already that day? Do I know they're there? It just depends on the morning. It's hard to answer it, really. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah, it's completely situational based.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like on a multi-day kayak tournament, you almost fish to survive on day 1, because on day 2 you can almost gamble a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, a lot of guys. It happened to me on Kentucky Lake. I was on a good bite. It was for the Hobie event last year on Kentucky Lake. I was on a great bite, smallmouth bite, offshore stuff, deep brush piles, throwing some jerkbait stuff too as well. And that was on Thursday. Saturday comes, every boat, every party barge, every jet ski had the whole pocket covered up. And I didn't, I fished a little creek, but the problem with the creek was an hour and a half away. And I said, and I went way back in this creek where the water was cool. It was the middle of summer. Caught a couple of 3 or 4 pounders, one big one about 5. But I thought other people were going to be way in that creek. So I decided to fish the open water stuff because I had some more options there. And I made the wrong decision. And I don't think anybody fished that creek. So it's just like, you never know, man. At 10 o'clock, I probably should have packed it up and drove an hour and a half and tried to make it happen up there. But I didn't. I said, you know what? I found fish here. I know they're here. I'm marking fish.
They just wouldn't eat.
It's tough, man. It's tough out there sometimes, you know.
Yeah, you gotta live and die for the most part with it.
Yeah. So that that's the thing about kayaks. You can't. You're right. It's all about that decision making, and it's emphasized by being in these plastic boats so much that you really. I want to know these guys like Russ Snyder's, man. That dude, he's the best I've ever been around, and I hope y'all have interviewed him before. But he is the best that I've ever seen.
I've been trying. He hasn't opened up my DM yet.
Yeah, well, I'll call him. I'll call him right now.
There you go.
But if you want to talk to a guy that knows his stuff and knows how to be more consistent than anyone else I've ever seen in my life, that's the guy, man. And it's so impressive, man. It's so impressive.
It shows too. Look how consistent he is in that top 5, top 10
all the time, man. And look, these guys are good. These guys are good. Like we're not, back in the day, you go catch 75, 80 inches, you're doing good. Not anymore, man. To be able to win, to be up there, and these guys spend those guys are down in Florida 2 weeks fishing for 2 weeks before the Invitational. 2 weeks. I'm like, these people have jobs? I don't understand what's going on here. And I'm driving down Wednesday night, fishing Thursday and Friday, and trying to get it done. It makes it a lot tougher. But man, it's that time on the water. That's it.
Yep.
Undoubtedly, yeah. Andy, do you have anything left for Craig before we hit him with our last question?
No, man. Unfortunately, the kayak realm is a little left bank for me. It's just something I don't really do. So it's kind of fun just being able to listen and hear the different perspectives. So I appreciate your time tonight. So I'm sorry I didn't talk so much. I'm kind of just soaking in the knowledge here. So I'm innocent bystander, I guess you could say.
Maybe someday we'll get Andrew in a kayak tournament.
Man, let me tell you, it's catching a 5-pounder in a boat is a lot of fun, but go catch one where they jump up high and you're eye level with them. That's a lot of fun. So,
smallmouth while you're sitting down in a kayak is insane because they jump up you duck away from because they're almost hitting you in the face.
Yeah, that's funny.
Hey, I have a video when I fished the national championship on Gunnersville, and I hooked up like a 17, 18 inch little 2-pounder on a shaky head. And for some reason, that fish was fired up, man. And he came out of the water. So I have a slow-mo video of him just coming up like, I don't know. He definitely came as high as my head. I don't know. It was really cool. I'll have to send y'all that video. But it's just a different – you're just down there, man. You're like down there with them. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really quick, crazy story. Something I really regret. I went out fishing with one of my buddies, and it was summertime, but we're going to go after smallmouth. We're going to try to catch them on topwater first thing, go for largies later. Well, I had brought an extra GoPro so that he could run a GoPro on his kayak. Well, I had forgotten an extra SD card, so we didn't run one.
Yeah.
This would have been the craziest footage you probably would have seen in a kayak because this dude catches a smallmouth on a spook. And it's under his kayak, so he's leaning off the side. The smallmouth comes up and jumps up as he's leaning down, shakes and catches his hat with part of the spook in its mouth. So it just takes his hat.
No way.
Oh, it was
No
crazy.
way.
It was wild. Absolutely wild. And if he had a GoPro, that would have been the craziest footage.
That must have been Forrest.
Jeez.
No, it wasn't
crazy.
Forrest.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen that
It was
before.
a guy named Tom who I don't think he fishes anymore. But, yeah. But dude, that was
awesome.
Dude, it was crazy. I was like, you are so lucky that's not your face.
Yeah.
It hooked right in the brim. Like it literally almost snugged and just took it and just ripped it off. It was wild.
It's awesome, man.
I wish I saw the picture of him holding up the line. It's just a spook hat fish. It was just
that's never happened to me, but hey, you never know.
Yeah,
funny.
But no, it was pretty crazy. But dude, obviously we appreciate you coming on the show. And our last question for you is, if you could sit down, have a steak, have a beer with 3 different individuals, pick their brain. They don't have to be the fishing industry, and they don't have to be presently alive. They could be alive 1,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. Anybody. If you could invite 3 different individuals, sit down, have steak, have a beer, pick their brain, who are you inviting?
Man, I wasn't ready for that one. Let's see. Man, since we're talking fishing, let's kind of go that. I don't know. That's a tough one, man. I would say I'm a drummer as well. I'm a big time drummer.
Sweet.
I played in college. I played at LSU, and I played in some bands. And I got a drum kit in the basement. That's just something I've done pretty much since middle school. So number one would be the number one drummer. Is a guy named Josh Freeze. I don't know if you ever heard of Josh Freeze before. You've heard of the band A Perfect Circle?
Mm-hmm.
The rock band A Perfect Circle?
Yeah.
He was the drummer on the first two albums. And his drumming is just, anyway, that was one of the guys that he's amazing. Amazing. Anyway, that's one. I would like to sit with Mark Zona.
Oh, that would be fun.
That guy, that dude is just, I don't know.
He's
man.
out there.
He's got
wild.
He's got the best fishing show. Like the way he describes everything, he just makes you want to go fishing, man. Like just the way he I don't know, him, and probably either, I would say Iaconelli, man. I'm a big Iaconelli fan. So I would say those three, if you want to talk about fishing, definitely those, Mark Zona, Iaconelli, and then Josh Freeze, the drummer, would be really, really cool.
Heck yeah.
I probably should have said something like Jesus or something like that. I apologize, but we're talking about this, man. That's kind of,
It's your three. It doesn't matter who the three is. It's your three. So, but if we asked you in like 6 months, you would change your mind. So you would say three entirely different people.
Yeah,
probably.
Ike fishing 3 Hobies this year. At least it sounds like it.
What's that?
I believe Ike is fishing 3 different Hobies.
Oh, he is?
Make TOC. I believe so. I thought they mentioned that on Ike Live.
Yeah, I know we fished with the Susquehanna last year,
right?
And I would love to compete against him. I love fishing the Hobie events. AJ does one incredible job, man. It's the cleanest run tournaments that I've ever seen, and I love those events. I've fished, I think, 3 of them so far, and he does a killer job. And I mean, to be able to compete against an elite guy, that's awesome, man. To have that opportunity, it's really cool.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, dude, we know you got some more shows to get on tonight. We know you got some more talking in you. And so we want to say we really appreciate you coming on for the time you did, and it was good to have you here. Obviously, we'd love to have you back on. And dude, I hope you can make the national championship in Texas. I'd love the opportunity to meet you. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll hit you up, man, because I really want to go, and I really want to do well. I mean, I want to be there for the first time they do that. I just want to be part of it, to see this thing. It just keeps growing, man, and I want to be around it. I really do.
Heck yeah, 100%. Well, not to swing your bias at all, but we have the Airbnb 2 days before practice. So the day before practice starts, there is a 30-acre stocked pond at our Airbnb. So no pressure. We're going to have a little mini tournament if you want to come in for $20 for a little side tournament.
I'm in.
That's so sweet.
That goes out to anybody that's fishing that national championship. If you want to come beat me and Zach, we can do like a little mini 30-acre team tournament the day before the first day of practice.
That'd be wild.
Hey, that's a way to build your confidence before you go fish that lake,
Yeah, there you go, right?
And I'm sure there's giants in that little pond too. I mean, 30 acres is not little, but
yeah, 30. That's pretty big. Yeah, it's pretty big.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, I hope obviously to hear back from that you're going down, and looking forward to 2021, man. And I'm rooting for you. I hope to see you do well.
Man, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course.
Yeah,
thank you again.
Appreciate it, man. And take care. I'll have to tune in. Is Buter's show live tonight?
Yeah, he should be live at he's probably 8 o'clock. Yeah, he's live tonight.
I'll have to, when we get off here, I'll have to come tune in and listen.
Yeah, man.
All right. Take care, dude.
Well, you have a good night, and it was good meeting you, Craig. Best of luck.
You too. Appreciate it.
Good dude. That's one subject that I've been talking to a whole bunch of people on, and I know you and I have discussed as well, is motors on kayaks. And that's something obviously I really want. I'm money stricken right now, but it adds a whole different advantage and perspective to kayak fishing because, and you know me, I prefer offshore over shallow, and it's you want something that's going to keep you in place, that's going to help you be more efficient as an offshore fisherman, especially in the wind. That's it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I'm also extremely excited for the 360 drive. Breaking that in on Saturday, that's going to be an absolute blast. And I'm looking forward to taking that Hobie all over at Chickamauga next week. And it's gonna be fun, dude. And hopefully the weather we're looking at for New York is we'll have some open water in a couple weeks when we get back.
For sure.
It is 55 degrees today in New York.
So Lake
February.
His ice has been shaving down quite rapidly. So
heck yeah.
Yeah. The river was a giant ice field today because of the wind. So,
Oh, it was right because it was a crazy west wind, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Southwest?
like 4 days, the lake has lost almost 25% of its ice coverage.
That's really good. That's good news.
And it's thin ice too. It's not like 60 to 100 centimeters thick like it is most years. It's like 18 to 24 centimeters, which I think equates like 6 to 8 inches. So it will break up and move, and as it warms, it will melt pretty quick. And I think we have some rain coming, like quite a bit of rain on Saturday, so that will help tremendously as well. So
Heck yeah. Sweet deal. Well, dude, I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to get this edited, publish this, and then I need to get to bed.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah. All right, dude. As always, folks, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you guys on Monday.